Today we're gonna make a very delicious and gourmet, but not at all complicated, vegan mac and cheese. I'm gonna start this recipe with some roasted butternut squash. This is 1.5 cups, and to do that, all I did was cut a whole butternut squash in half and scoop out the seeds. Then I drizzled it with some olive oil, salt, and pepper, and it's really simple. We don't need to cut up the squash or peel it. We're just gonna roast it like this in the oven at 425 degrees Fahrenheit for about 45 to 50 minutes until it's completely fork tender. And when the squash is cool enough, you can scoop out the flesh. You need 1.5 cups. If you have leftover flesh, you can save it for a soup, a risotto, or a curry. The reason I love using butternut squash for this mac and cheese, even though it sounds a bit strange, is that one, it's got this beautiful orange color, which kind of associate with mac and cheese, and two, it's gonna provide a really nice velvety texture to the sauce, so it's an all-star ingredient. Plus, it's packed with fiber and vitamins, so I feel like that means you can eat as much mac and cheese as you want. At least that's how I view the whole situation. All right, once you have your squash, this really does most of the work. So we're gonna blend up the squash with a bunch of other ingredients, and it'll be very simple, I promise. Butternut squash, we're gonna put that in the blender. Max did not wash this blender the last time he used it. That's okay. In goes the squash. The creamiest vegan cheese sauces I've had are made with cashews, raw cashews that have been soaked. When you blend them up, they get super creamy. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna add 1/2 cup of raw soaked cashews. I soaked these cashews in boiling water for an hour. If you have a Vitamix or something similar, that's sufficient. But if you have kind of a standard blender, I would suggest soaking them in cool water overnight for 8 hours. And if cashews bring the creaminess that we associate with mac and cheese, then nutritional yeast is going to mimic that cheesy umami goodness we also associate with mac and cheese. And we need a decent amount. We need 1/2 cup of nutritional yeast. And to bring some flavor into this mac and cheese, we're gonna add a teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of smoked paprika, and 3/4 teaspoon of dry mustard powder. Dry mustard powder is gonna bring this really nice sharp tang to this recipe, kind of like a sharp cheddar cheese, and it's gonna balance the rich creaminess. One of the reasons people love cheese so much is that it naturally contains glutamic acid, which is essentially umami, that rich savory taste. So to bring some of our own umami without using animal products, we're gonna add some miso paste, a tablespoon of light or white miso paste. And to make this truly the most indulgent, creamiest, most luxurious mac and cheese, I'm gonna add in 1 can of light coconut milk. You could also use full fat coconut milk and kind of water it down on your own. That's an option, and you can find instructions how to do that in the blog post. Because I know I'm probably gonna get this question in the comments, I'm going to just answer the question, do I have to use coconut milk? I would say yes, mostly. Coconut milk is what's gonna bring that really rich creaminess to this dish, and mac and cheese is supposed to be rich and creamy and indulgent. It's not a health food. I don't think it should taste like a health food, but if you are allergic to coconut milk, obviously don't use it. I would say oat milk would be a better substitute than something like almond milk. Oat milk is quite creamy, so you're still gonna get some of that, whereas almond milk, I feel like it's just good for smoothies, so don't use that in here. And to cut through that coconut taste so it doesn't taste coconutty, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. The last ingredient for the cheese sauce is tapioca flour, which might sound a little surprising, but it's gonna make the cheese sauce really creamy and give it the texture you associate with mac and cheese. And we'll add some salt and pepper to season. And now we're just gonna blend this up until it is smooth and creamy. Look at this. This looks perfect. Wow, you're gonna wanna look at this. Cheese sauce, liquid gold. Before I started on the cheese sauce, I put some pasta on the stove. I'm using elbow pasta to keep this a very classic mac and cheese. I'm just gonna add the hot cooked pasta back to the pot. We're gonna mix the cheese sauce with it. And my parents didn't grow up eating mac and cheese. Spoiler alert, it's not an Indian food. But my mom did make us a lot of the Kraft boxed mac and cheese, and I have very fond memories of eating that neon orange powder pasta. And this version is obviously a little more grown up, a little fancier, less processed, but it still has all that nostalgia baked into it. Do you hear that? Saucy. This is good enough to eat on its own, but to make it a little extra special, we're going to make a crispy topping, put it on top, and bake it in the oven. For our crispy topping, we're gonna start with panko breadcrumbs. I love how flaky and light panko is compared to regular breadcrumbs. And then we're gonna add nutritional yeast, kosher salt, a little bit of smoked paprika, and then top it off with some melted vegan butter. Now transfer this luscious looking vegan mac and cheese into a 2 or 3 quart baking pan. I lightly greased this with vegan butter earlier, and then we'll add the crispy bread topping on top. Now it's time to pop this in the oven, 400 degrees Fahrenheit for just 15 to 20 minutes. We're not trying to cook it through. The pasta is obviously already cooked. We just want to make sure that breadcrumb topping gets nicely browned and crispy. Mac and cheese just came out of the oven. It smells so good. It looks really good. And this is my favorite part of the video, the taste test. So just gotta get right to it. This is so cheesy and indulgent, and that crispy breadcrumb topping really nicely balances the creaminess. It's everything I want in a comfort food dish. And if you like comfort food, especially holiday comfort food, stay tuned because I've got more right here.